the banks will not give you their best rate at renewal time.
Yeah.
Never do. They will always try to get you, here's the rate, renew for us. And a lot of borrowers don't see the options that are out there. They're just like, oh, this is what I have to do. Okay, I'm gonna swallow this. And sometimes it could be a difference of like $200 to like $800 in terms of a monthly payment difference.
That's crazy.
Welcome to the Ottawa Property Podcast with your hosts Tony McNeil and ADOLFO ALVARENGA. Each week, they'll take a look at what's happening in the Ottawa real estate market and offer practical advice and insights for listeners. From market updates to success stories, they cover it all. Whether you're a first-time homebuyer, a seasoned investor, or just curious about the property landscape in Canada's capital, they've got you covered. Sit back, get comfortable, and let's get into it.
You good?
Will we start that?
Welcome back to another episode of the Ottawa Property Podcast. My name is Tony McNeil. I am a realtor based out of Ottawa, Canada, joined always by my co-host, ADOLFO ALVARENGA, level 2 mortgage agent based out of Ottawa as well. How's it going? If you're listening on the audio platforms, give us a like, drop us a share, give us a comment, let us know that you're listening. Let us know if you like it, or let us know that you don't like it. I mean, we can take it. Constructive criticism is good.
Yeah, we'll be real.
Yeah,
We're being
exactly.
real.
We're just two human beings that can take constructive criticism quite well sometimes. Adolfo, man, what's going on?
Oh man, it's been a busy week.
Adolfo's having a very long morning here.
Oh yeah, it's extracurricular activities late at night are not.
I can't do it, man.
Oh man, it's rough.
Late
As
nights.
much as I love playing the game, like it's some days it's hard to play
Used to
soccer.
have be in a hockey league. Like,
Used
it was
to?
like a beer league, but we'd have games like 11 o'clock at night, man. And you get home at after midnight and you're wired. You're
That's the
replaying the plays in your head in the game, and you don't get to sleep till like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then you have to get up at 5, 6 o'clock. Like, it's crazy,
So
man.
you sleep like 4 hours. So like yeah, but like that was me yesterday, and I have a feeling that would be me next week. Games at 10 a.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m. And it's like
Back to back.
no,
Oh my
like
gosh, yeah,
see, this
okay.
week was 10 p.m., next week's 11 p.m. And I'm like, why do I do this to myself? But like I don't know.
I can't do it.
I just enjoy playing soccer too much. Maybe that's the thing. But
Used to be a night owl, me, like in the hospitality industry, it kind of comes with the territory. But basically since Sophie was born, and I mean I had been out of the hospitality before she was born, but that like solidified me as an early riser and early to bed. I went to bed at 9:30 p.m. last night. No shame in that, and that's a pretty regular thing
I'm
for
envious, if I'm honest.
me. Well, Leo and I were gonna wash our cars sometime this week. It didn't happen yet, but he's texting me at 8:45 on Tuesday. He's like, "Let's go do it now." I'm like, "Man, no." I'm like, I'm winding down. I'm like,
No, but good for you. Good for you for setting that boundary. Because like,
well, in my head, I was like 10. I get back at just after 10. I'm back. I'm asleep by 11. It just wasn't worth it to me. That's it, man. I'm a guy who needs his 8 or 9 hours sleep. That's insane, but it's true.
Honestly, I'm with you. It's been a roller coaster of a week, and not necessarily just in the mortgage world, but like in terms of rentals and stuff. So it's like
Yeah.
one thing after the other, and my days have been right after each other. So it's like, okay, I need, hopefully tonight I'll get some wind down.
I just like to have a bit of catch up time. I think for me, it's dealing with a little bit of a renovation at home. Not a renovation, but yeah, maybe you could call it that. But we're building a built-in, like you've helped me with it. You've seen it. I've been waiting on these electricians to show to move some outlets for us, and it's been tough to try to find a reputable and be reliable. I mean, they kind of go hand in hand.
Oh yeah,
but it's tough, man. Like you're sifting through. We have electricians that we use on the regular, but this is a pretty small job. So like it's like, hey, do you want? It's kind of like a hobble for them. They come over on a Sunday afternoon, but we wanted it above board. Get it done the right way, and we're kind of on their timelines. So coming out of Christmas, people are like, yeah, we'll get to it. Your 3 plugs, you're kind of on the bottom of the list, right?
Yeah, that's the thing about the trades right now, especially especially in Quebec, because they do take their holidays like 2-3 weeks, I think, in Quebec.
Yeah, it's like a 2-week shutdown, man. I can't follow it, to be honest with you.
No, but I agree, and it's like one of those things. Like everyone is like slowly getting into it, but there's moments that you're like go 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 go, or like say you're closing of your clients that we talked about last week. Like, like we're just okay. For them, it was like, let's go, but other people's like, okay, let's slowly get back into this whole thing.
Everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
And we got on these outlets moving, we found a couple companies, obviously did our research online. Like I'm a big stickler for that. Like, if it's word of mouth, I'm totally cool with. I'll still verify it. but finding someone on your own, there's a little bit of intimidation in that. Like, luckily for me, I have a background in the trades, so I can kind of smell BS from a mile away, or when someone's kind of, what we used to say, put it this way, we had our siding done last year, and we got 4, I think it was 3 or 4 quotes we had done.
Okay.
2 were kind of in the middle, one was on the low, and then one was like, holy cow, it's out in space somewhere. And
did you go with the holy cow one?
I remember Louisa, she was like, why would it come in so high? I was like, he just gave you the FU price. And I was like, she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, that's the price because he doesn't want the job. He's like, it's so astronomically high that if you took it, he'd be like, okay, fine, I'll do it. But he's hoping that you won't take it because it's so high. He knows it.
Yeah.
And I've seen it coming from the drywall and renovation space before this. We unfortunately used to do that. Like, if it was something we're like, holy cow, we don't want to do this job. Like, this is going to be, A, maybe you don't make a lot of money doing it, or B, it's very time consuming or arduous work.
Mm-hmm.
You just do it, unfortunately.
It's interesting because you would think that they would just say like, hey, sorry, unfortunately we can't do this type of project, but it's more of like, okay, here you go.
Yeah.
Convince me to do your project, basically.
Yeah, it's like, what is it? Show me a number what you can't refuse or something. What is that from? I don't know.
Give me enough for you, won't refuse.
Yeah,
It's The Godfather.
Yeah, thank you. I've never seen that movie.
Oh my god.
I know, jeez.
Yeah, I should tell you to leave.
Bash me in the comments, everybody. Let me hear it. Should I watch The Godfather?
You should, at least the first one.
Fair enough.
At least the first one.
No, but we found a really good company. So we had 2 quotes done on this, and again, a very small job, moving 3 outlets. Everyone's like, you could probably just YouTube it. I'm like, no, I don't.
Electrical and plumbing.
Don't do the electrical jobs. Plumbing, I maybe would, depending on the scope of it. But certainly not anything that could zap me into oblivion. Not interested. It's a weird fare for me. I don't know.
But you're okay. You're okay with being flooded into oblivion.
Hey man, I've been through some plumbing disasters, so nothing can phase me in that space anymore.
That's true. After that one, that was a big one.
I think somebody have said this on the podcast before, but even when we have like a thermostat that needs swapping out, Louisa will do it. I will not. I'll stand there and hand her the screwdriver. Like, what do you need? Do you have water? You need anything? You good? But I just, even if I know all I'll shut the whole panel off to change one thermostat, and I won't go near it.
Wow.
She changed our dining room light fixture as well. The same thing. I'm like, you need a screwdriver? No problem. You need me to wipe your forehead? I can do that too.
Is this a fear from a childhood?
I don't know, man. I really.
You get electrocuted as a kid?
You stick too many forks and outlets? Hard to say. Not that I remember. Yeah. No. We got 2 quotes.
Yeah.
One was what I thought was, I was kind of in the ballpark of like, this is going to cost me $500. That's where in my mind I was. So one was 400 plus tax, and the other was 800 plus tax.
Okay.
So I mean, that's a big gap.
It's half the price.
Yeah. And again, the guy, one was an online quote. I took a video. I took a couple photos for him. Super nice guy. He said, yeah, this is probably be what it is in the ballpark of 4. The other guy came and inspected the job in person. And he gave him a really detailed breakdown of what he would have to do in this case, in this case, in this case. And maybe his estimate was just kind of insulating his costs. But my fear with that is that if it isn't as much work as he thinks it is, does he still stick with the original estimate, or does he knock it down?
Well, let me ask you this. What would you do?
I would knock it down.
Yeah, okay.
I honestly would. Yeah, for sure. If it didn't take it, like the guy, he finished yesterday. He was there for like 3 hours total.
Because I once had, and this is interesting, I once had an electrician come, and I couldn't, this is when I was starting into the rental property. I had no idea much of it. And the electrician came, and one plug wasn't working in one place, so then it was kind of they were all linked, right? Mm. And I'm like, I switched the switch. I did all that stuff that I know how to do.
So you flipped the light switch?
No,
I'm just kidding.
Breaker.
You know how to do it?
No, I actually switched the plug, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't work. And then electrician comes, and he sees it. He's like, okay, clicks the button on the reset. On a GFI that I hadn't noticed that it was a GFI. And I'm like, great. 2 seconds. And he wanted to charge me his whole hour, $100 an hour. This was like
Get the hell
8
out of
years ago.
Dodge, man.
Man, I was like, so that's what I'm saying. Like at that point, like, okay, you literally took you 2 minutes, and I understand that you're paying for the experience of knowing that and all that stuff. Totally get
Sure,
it.
but he didn't even open his tool bag.
Not even like maybe just to like take the tester out and just go. So it's interesting though, because like some people have that reliability, and that's where good people attract good people.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
And they get referred. They get
100%. And I get that, maybe the guy would have cleared his whole day to take this job on, and then he, in his mind, he's worth that $800.
Yeah.
But to me, if it was only a 3-hour job, I'd have a very hard time swallowing that pill for one guy to move a couple outlets. So, just on your point about the plug issue you had, we see that a ton in home inspections. So like, especially in older townhomes, guys, anyone listening, the GCI outlets in your bathrooms are usually, in older homes, they're connected. So like, if you trip the one in the upper bathroom, you actually got to go downstairs and reset it in your half bath or something in order to get that plug working again. So I wonder how many people out there in the world are just like, oh man, this plug hasn't worked in 5 years, and they don't realize that it just hit that little button. They would be able to use their hairdryer or whatever again.
Yeah, and it's the moment that you realize what it is, it's like, okay, you never forget that, and it's like you always would know that. But it's true. Like older homes, older buildings, usually the electrical is all interconnected.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah. So that being said, I mean, we found some trustworthy people, and it's been good. So I know you're dealing with something in terms of you are the trustworthy person, but maybe getting some kind of pushback on mortgages. And we did say we're going to mention this in this episode, guys. So anyone listening who's following along, we're kind of hitting that like mortgage renewal cliff that everyone's been talking about. So there's going to be, a vast majority of Canadian mortgages will be up for renewal, in the coming months. And I know you're seeing a lot of that, probably people having the conversations of like, what's my plan going to be? Even I'm getting calls on it that I'm deferring to you. And then I'm relaying the info back. But anyway, tell us what's going on.
So yeah, so like we mentioned before, I think it's like 1.5 million renewals coming up according to CMHC for this year, which is when 2020. That's when we started first seeing the 1.1%, 2% rates, right? So that is breaking right now in terms of the 5-year terms that most Canadians took at the time of purchasing, or at that time to now. So then you kind of get into that position of like, okay, what has happened in the last 5 years? You kind of completely escape the craziness of the last few years.
You have such a low rate, you're so insulated to what's going on, right? You might hear about it in the news, but you're not actually following it along until you get that notice to renew.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like, and I think I've said this before in the podcast, is the banks will not give you their best rate at renewal time.
Yeah.
Never do. They will always try to get you, here's the rate, renew for us. And they make it as easy as possible. Sign a document. They even will send you the electronic signatures documents. Like, so it's just like one click away. And a lot of borrowers don't see the options that are out there. They're just like, oh, this is what I have to do. Okay, I'm going to swallow this. And sometimes it could be a difference of like $200 to like $800 in terms of the monthly payment difference.
That's crazy.
And
right?
that's like, it could change a lot, right? So like, what I was telling you the story is like, I have a client who is up for renewal come mid-February, give or take. And I've been working with him since like October, November. We've been having these conversations. Like he was diligent to let me know and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, like this is what we could do. I ask him, like,
give me some background on it first. So what's the property type? Where obviously
it's
the
a single home in a very good neighborhood in the city.
Okay.
Like it's Alta Vista-ish area.
Okay.
And you have this when they bought in 2020, they bought at a good price before the market spiked up. So that means that there's a lot of equity now that has been created because of it, right? So my solution to them was like, and I always ask this question, it's like, okay, what's your long-term goals with this property? Are you in some way or form interested in keeping this property as a rental at some point, or are you just strictly want your
one and done
occupied?
on to the next one?
That's it. You know, like, because being a landlord is not for everybody.
For sure.
And I can tell you that for a fact. Like, even some days I question it. I'm like, am I really keep doing this?
Even for the smallest tasks, sometimes I'm like, oh god.
Well, right now I have to change like 3 3 to 6 fire alarms, and yesterday we were doing a fire inspection test, and it's like for 4 hours I think it was like beep beep, and I'm like, no.
You have earplugs for that?
I wish I had them.
Ooh.
But
And
so
you're getting for Christmas.
going back to the story, they're up for renewal. Everything seems great. We're kind of having this conversation. It's like, okay, what do we do? And I'm like, look, what do you want to do with this? And there was a talks initially. He's like, well, he has peers and his friends groups that are like, have multiple properties or have other properties. So he's like, this is a way to do stuff. This is a avenue to either a retirement fund or
Sure.
a property for their kids at some point.
Absolutely.
Like we have another client, a mutual client that is doing that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, perfect. So I started having this conversation with him. I'm like, look, what we can do with your mortgage, you're currently at a 20-year, you're going to be at a 20-year amortization when the mortgage is done, you know? We can either decide what you want to do. Your monthly payments are going to increase by approximately this much, depending on what rate we end up getting, which was about $400 to $500 on a monthly basis.
Yeah, enough to make you
enough to make a dent,
your eyebrow
for sure.
Kind of go, ooh, okay.
Yeah, well, it's probably a car payment at some point,
Sure.
or call it utilities, call it whatever you want to, right?
Yeah.
So then he's like, okay, that kind of makes. So I'm like, amortization. I'm like, that's a little rough, you know, but they can manage it. They have the incomes to be able to manage that extra payments. So I'm like, okay, if you want to at some point convert this into a rental, which was his kind of idea that he was thinking with.
Yep.
I'm like, let's refinance, keep the mortgage amount that you have, add a home equity line of credit for the difference of the equity that you would qualify for together, right? And then from there, re-extend the amortization to 30, 25 or 30, whichever you prefer, and make the monthly payment either the same as you have it at this moment with the low 1% rate, or lower, which could be the possibility. I think in that case it would have been. So obviously I get the question is like, and I'm sure people in the comments are probably going to say this, is why you're paying interest for an extra 5 years, an extra 10 years, right? At that point, what's the benefit of it, right?
Why would I extend this loan? I just want to get this done with. This
exactly
is what I was taught by my parents to just
which is interesting you mentioned, because this is where the conversation kind of leads to. So I'm like, okay, look, if you do this, yes, you're gonna be paying for an extra 5-10 years in terms of interest, but however, you're in the driver's seat at this point.
Does the mortgage payments stay the same if he
as what he had them now?
Okay.
So then it means an extra $500 that he doesn't necessarily have to spend into it.
Sure.
So I'm like, put those extra $500, because you can swallow those extra payments, into a savings account. You know, between you and your significant other, it's there in the savings account. Then at the end of the year, if there's any repairs, if there's any major appliances that you need to change, or for whatever reason you want to take a trip, honeymoon, call it, you can make that decision of what you would want to do. If you have nothing like that and you just say like, oh, I just have this money saved, then put that into lump sum into the mortgage, and then that itself might drop a few 2 years, 3 years, you know. So if you're doing that, then you're eventually coming back to the same amortization
in a 5-year period too, right? Or a 10-year period, whatever it is. It's easy to chip away at that.
For sure, especially if you're making lump sum payments, right?
I think we don't talk about it enough.
No,
I don't want to interrupt, but I just, maybe we can talk about lump sums in more detail in another episode, because I think it's super, super important for people to understand the power of that.
Yeah,
it goes right on the principle, and you'd be surprised how it affects the length of the mortgage. It's pretty incredible.
It can lower it dramatically, and it's interesting because like I even did the amortization schedules for him in terms of if he kept the same amortization, if he kept. What the discrepancy of was like maybe $5,000 between extending and not.
Yeah, but it allowed him to
be in the driver's seat. I always say that. It's like, do you want to control your finances, or do you want the bank to be the one controlling your finances? At the same time, we're going to add a HELOC to this, a home equity line of credit, that as he pays down this mortgage, more becomes available for his HELOC. Why is this important? If he decides to convert this as a rental, he can pull from that HELOC the down payment for the new home that he's buying. And this is what I tell clients. It's like, you want your owner occupied home to be the lowest mortgage possible, because you want to pay that one down as quickly as you can.
Sure.
100% on that one. If you're going to have a rental, you want to have that maximized as much as possible. The reason being is you can expense against the rental income that you're generating, the interest of that mortgage.
Mhm.
So then put majority of the mortgage on the rental property
Yeah, expense
and
the interest.
keep your owner occupied at a lower mortgage volume, right? So then, because you can't expense the owner occupied, you can only do the square footage if you have a home office,
Yeah, which is like nothing when you do the math on it.
but it's still something.
No, I mean, yeah,
But it's
not
nothing compared
life-changing.
to what if it was a full rental,
Sure.
right? So then this kind of puts him in a position where, like, okay, long term, we have a plan set if you want to eventually do this. Again, being a landlord is not for everybody.
Totally.
I can say that. But if you're thinking of the idea, I've had this conversation with multiple, and everybody kind of thinks of it. It's like, I think it would be a good idea, especially now where they're seeing like where the prices are heading
100%.
and they're having kids. They're concerned about the future generation
Absolutely.
not being able to qualify or be able to purchase because the prices are getting high.
Yeah.
We're seeing it already with our generation. The average income of a solo income will not get you a property right now.
No, sir.
Unfortunately, maybe a combined income of a household will, but not a solo income.
No, not unless you want to live in like Brockville or something.
Which some people do, but even
Sure.
then, it might be difficult too.
Yeah, certainly
Like,
not in the city.
The average income in the city compared to the average income in Brockville is completely different
Yep,
at that point,
you're absolutely
right?
right.
So we're playing with this scenario and we're kind of looking around. He's like, okay, like he was gonna talk with a significant other. I'm gonna take the holidays, and I'm like, perfect, go, by all means, go for it. Come back at the beginning of January. We have this conversation, and he basically tells me, he's like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna renew dollar for dollar amount on it.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, what changed? And he's like, I spoke to my parents, and they don't think that I should do the re-extension of the mortgage. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. We can keep it at 20. Let's add the HELOC, maybe convert it into a rental. And then he's like, yeah, I don't know about that either. Like, we might be selling this property at this point, and then just keep one mortgage afterwards when we move. We don't know if that's going to happen now. We don't know if that's going to happen in 5 years. So we just want to stick to what we have at this moment. And I'm like, you know what? Like, it's fair. Okay. Let's compare the rates. He hasn't really checked what his bank was going to offer him, or he did check, but he wasn't comparing apples to apples at that point.
Sure.
Because they gave him a 5-year instead of a 3-year, which is what we originally were discussing. So I'm like, okay, so go back to your bank and ask them for a 3, and let's see where things stand, right? So I'm like, but it's quite interesting. This is the reason of the conversation, that you might have a idea, and you might think that you see it in your peers that this is a success.
Yeah.
But then comes, and it's an important aspect, I understand that, but comes your parents, and because it's something not normal or not something that they were brought up with or
Totally.
that they think about,
Yeah.
it just completely sways the whole perspective.
Right? It's tough, right? I mean, I get it. It maybe wasn't as common
Mhm.
for our parents or their generation to have, multiple properties, carrying a lot of debt. I kind of see it on both sides of the coin. My parents have 2 properties. They're probably going to sell both and move here, hopefully. And then we're going to look for something with an income potential in the basement for them so they can have a mortgage helper as well. But on the other hand, Luis's parents, again, awesome people. But just they're the opposite. They're like, pay this off as quickly as possible, right? Like you saw it on Christmas Eve.
I had a
what would you do if
conversation
you
with
had
them on
this much
Christmas
left?
dinner.
Yeah, exactly. So they're that close to being debt free, and then that's the goal, right? So it's on both sides of the coin. Like even when Luis and I first started getting into the landlord space and that type of thing, like they questioned it for sure. They're like, you sure you want to? Because I was telling them like, this is the plan. Like get one, and then we'll move to this, and then move to this. And like, well, leveling up, and you can do it relatively quickly. Talking in like a 1 to 5 year period, like making at least 2 to 3 moves, and they couldn't. Like it took them a while to wrap their heads around it. They've come on board with it since, but to your client's point, like it's tough, right? And then you hear it from your mom and dad, and you kind of take their word as gospel, and you don't you don't question it, right? Like we want to make mom and dad happy. I don't know.
Or maybe you lean more into their understanding of how things were, or like that you trust more their words. Like
they have more sway than you do in this type of
totally
not
because
argument,
because
but
of the
in this,
relationship,
like,
and I understand that, and like you're always looking for the best interest, of course,
totally. Yeah.
But then sometimes because of not being in it on a day-to-day basis or not being in it, that information might not necessarily be as accurate.
Totally.
You know.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying that anybody wants to be a landlord. Not everybody does. There are some risks to it.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
it's some hard work, right? But the rewards are very good in the long term. Especially if having kids right now, there's a property that they can eventually be transferred to or buy.
Yep.
So, which no hard feelings. I totally understand it. It's just one of those things that like it really interests me because I see real estate as a means for long-term success.
Absolutely.
And using leverage in real estate can definitely create a profit. Obviously on the long-term aspect, right? You hear horror stories from all types of investments, but real estate is a safe mechanism for that. Even like, let's say I had a conversation with like Lisa's parents, and it was like, what do we do? And I told them, I was like, you're still working right now. You're heading to retirement.
Yeah.
Even if you
Capitalize
pay
on that
this
while you
mortgage
can.
off right now that you have the income to qualify, add a HELOC to your property. It won't cost you a thing with it. And just make sure that it's more of a safety net.
Yeah.
I'm not saying use it, spend it, go travel the world. No. But have it in case anything comes up.
Sure.
At an older age, you never know. You have no idea how many calls I've had from clients that are like of the elderly that are just like on CPP and retired income, and
scary.
they have some credit card debt, or they have some type of sickness that they have to somehow pay the bills for, and they have no room. House free and clear.
Yeah.
But they can't really take out of it unless there's a solution called a reverse mortgage, but it's not the most ideal solution for them.
Yeah, those are not. I mean, yeah.
You know,
maybe
so
we'll
that's why
break
I'm
that
like,
down
it's
another episode, but
we're gonna talk about mortgages in every episode after.
no, that's what it's about, right?
But
those reverse
that's
mortgages are really tough.
that's what I kind of say. Like, just trust the professionals too, that they have your best interests, and that because we see it on a day-to-day basis. If you don't necessarily want to guide that guidance into the landlord aspect, it's totally fair, but then have the conversation of not just going with what you already have and the idea of like, okay, pay it down as quickly as possible. And it, because real estate can be a tool for long-term like, what do you say,
Wealth.
Benefit and wealth.
Yeah,
There we
for
go.
sure.
Wealth.
I'm with you on that, man. I totally wholeheartedly agree. We see it because we're living it every day, and the clients, you know, when they see the bigger picture, most times they come around or at least want to explore it. I mean, it sounded like he was very interested to a certain degree, and maybe it just takes, maybe it's going to take him another couple of years before he actually pulls the trigger on something like that. But it's too bad, you know. No offense to my parents, but you know, I'm not taking any type of financial advice from them anytime soon. That way, like I've figured it out on my own.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's all parents either, but it's one of those things where you got to kind of compare them both and just make the right call for the family, I suppose.
And
right?
that's the thing, is that you want to make sure that, yes, take advice from all sides, and you want to make sure that what works for you and your family going forward.
Yeah. But we've said it before, it's like beating a dead horse, but we're advocates for that. We see this as like, if you can get in now and you can leverage that in 2 to 5 years, 3 to 5, whatever it is, you'd be surprised where you can end up pretty quickly in all this. And like you hit the nail on the head with this, like retiring on CPP and having no pension. Like, I mean, I think of most people, even if you have a pension, it's not going to be that great.
No.
It's like, people our age, guys and girls our age, we go to retire and you got nothing and you're living off of $600 or $700 a month or $1,400. I don't know what a CPP pension would be, but it's not much.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly not enough to pay rent.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have all this equity or if your house is paid off, you can't access it. It's tough, right? And you sell and then you downsize and then you're not.
But even now you
it's like
sell and then you downsize
to
almost what?
Exactly.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Like it's hard, and it's adjusting to the worlds that we live in nowadays. And I think that's where it's like keep an open mind of things.
Agreed.
Keep an open mind of where long term things could go. We don't know where the market's gonna go. That's the reality of it. Like fixed rates right now are trending up, then down, then up, then down. So it's hard to predict.
And sometimes it's not even the risk and the finances of it. It's some people just don't want to be the landlord,
which is fair.
Yeah.
I think it's like it's not cut for everybody. I agree.
It's a interesting game. I mean, I'm kind of hoping that, not hoping because my tenants are great, but we've kind of discussed that if they leave this year, we would try out Airbnb for a little bit just because it is our primary residence. And I think I make a lot more money doing it. I did the numbers roughly.
Just more work for you.
It's okay, man. I
Okay.
don't mind a little bit more. Like we're talking like a big, we're talking about doubling the income of that property in a year at like 50 to 60% occupancy.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a very you can be creative in different ways, right?
yeah.
And if you don't want to do the extra work of the Airbnb to host people and have to clean it, host people and have to clean it, you can
Fair.
always just long term, and it's still a solution.
Yeah, the long term, like, rents have certainly, I don't know, they've taken a bit of a beating lately, but they've come down a bit. But depends on the unit and the location. Obviously, these are huge factors when in pricing these houses. Maybe this is a good topic for next week. Maybe we'll take my rental
Mm-hmm.
and look at the numbers as a long term versus an Airbnb and see what those
Yeah.
deltas are. I mean, let us know in the comments, guys, if you'd be interested in hearing that. I'm interested.
It'd be a good. Well, it's interesting because it's a person.
Yeah, well, let's try it out. But I just want to jump in on the landlord thing because it's that time of year where landlords are probably looking at their renewals, thinking like, is it now the time to sell this property?
Mhm.
Either cash out and run, or do I move it into something else? Like a lot of our business on the team is exactly that. Investor clients that have a property they've had for a while. It's done them really well, and they're kind of just wondering now if it's the time to cut ties. So we're dealing with it. A mutual client.
Mm-hmm.
Selling with tenants, it's tough, right?
Oh,
This is
big
always the
time.
biggest thing about that, because
Big
I can
time.
tell someone, an end user living in their house as their primary residence versus an investor's home with tenants in it are, believe it or not, if they're identical, like if they're exact same house but with different people living in it, there's going to be a big difference in the sale price, depending on that tenant.
Depending on the tenant, that's what I was gonna say. It depends on the tenant how the property looks when they come for
Absolutely.
showings. That's
Yeah.
I think that's the most key aspect, and then the other one is the vacancy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Who are you selling to, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
if someone's an end user themselves, they want to be moving into this, and they don't want that uncertainty of like, well, if the tenant doesn't leave, I'm never going to be able to move in, and then I got to time my moving out to moving in, and it becomes it's a pretty messy kind of stack of dominoes.
because
could
at that
fall.
point too, the landlord or the owner, the investor has to give notice of at least 2 months
Mhm.
from the beginning of the month.
Mhm.
So let's say use right now, for example, if we're in January, it has to be February and March as a notice to
Yes.
then move in April 1st.
That's
Even if there's like 15 days left in January, it's still
Yeah, it bumps
you
it
still
to
have
the
to do it
first.
from the beginning of
Yeah.
the month.
Yeah.
Like you can give the notice now, but it still has to be considered February 1st, March 1st, and then April 1st of a move in. So that limits buyers because they're also like, do we want to move in quickly or do we want to wait
Yeah.
until this?
So, very good points.
Mhm.
And the situation and the timeline that we're working with now on this particular home, notice was served right after Christmas, so before the 1st of January.
Okay.
So hopefully by the end of February, they're looking at a move-in date of March 1st for another property. We have been working very closely with this tenant. Like, we're very fortunate in this particular scenario that
Mhm.
they're so far have been very nice to work with and willing to meet us in the middle on some things. But I think it's interesting to think back to my first conversation with the client, and he's we're doing a CMA, a comprehensive market analysis of the property, because they want to know what it's worth. And I said, based on the comparable sales, this is what your property is worth today, as is, with the tenant, with no touch-ups, no nothing. You don't lift a finger, you just list it. This is what I think you'll get.
Mhm.
And I said, if the tenant was gone, and your house was vacant, and you did XYZ to it, and we're not talking about major renovations here. We're talking about some paint, maybe some new carpet on the stairs, some swapping of light fixtures, like not crazy budget heavy stuff.
Mhm.
They would have a new sale price, and this is what I would confidently say they would get. Safe to say they weren't happy with my first price with a tenant, because it's that age-old adage of everyone thinks their house is worth more than it is.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's tough. It's a very tough, like, that's probably the hardest part of our jobs as realtors, is just breaking that news to say, like, guys, I don't know. I can't tell you that it's worth more if the data is telling me one thing. Like, if we're looking at past sales and sales history in that neighborhood, and there's a lot of comparables, there was no way for me to justify an extra $50K on top of it. It was never worth it.
Yeah.
Ever. Even at the peak of the pandemic, they didn't sell for that high.
that was a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah,
probably.
for sure. He was, and he was kind of upset, and we it's always professional, and we're not we're not out to get anybody. We just want to be honest, because if we're not honest with the client, then in 1 to 3 months when the house isn't sold, they're going to be upset with us.
Yep.
They're going to be pissed off it hasn't sold.
Yep.
They're going to want to question what we're doing as realtors to sell it, when matter of fact is that you got the price wrong from the start.
Yeah, and sometimes it happens too. Like I've seen it with or we've had mutual clients where like you give them a ballpark of what it will most likely sell, and then somebody else comes and is like, oh, we could sell it for what you want.
Yeah, and then they
But
get
then
the listing.
they get the listing and end up selling it for exactly what you said it was gonna sell. So like,
man, it's happened so many times.
it's-
It's like
it's
the
a-
weirdest thing in the world. You're like, I'm happy for them, but I'm also like, I told you so.
so you wanna kind of say, I told you so type of thing.
kind of,
But
you
but I
like,
know it's like keeping it professional and like,
yeah,
you
of
know.
course, man. But that's the thing. Like, it's my job to tell you, like, this is what the data shows. I'm not just grabbing a price out of thin air and saying,
Yeah.
this is what I think it is. Like, we're doing a lot of research on this.
Yeah.
So this, anyway,
And you're being honest about it, right?
Of
Like
course.
even if it means you don't get the listing, you still let them know this is what I think will sell. Like you have no idea how many times I've seen it in the
I got
past
it.
too.
I'll see if I can find this in my phone. Someone sent me. I heard this really interesting thing the other day when I was listening to another podcast, actually. But anyway, I'll find it. The issue is, if you don't get the price right from the start, you're going to hurt yourself in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So you start high and you're accumulating days on market. You're priming yourself up for a low ball.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you're going to have to start chipping away at it. Say the tenants move out, now you don't have any income in that property anymore, and all of a sudden you're paying the mortgage out of your own pocket, if there is a mortgage left on it. You start to sweat a bit, right? You're pulling at your collar going, holy cow, like, we got to try to, this guy has to work somehow. Maybe you start to 5K, 10K, 15K, until the market says, like, yeah, okay, you're in the ballpark now, and someone gives you an offer. But 9 times out of 10, I really believe this. Had you got the number right from the start, had you been realistic about that price, you would have sold for more than what you did sell for 3 months on market, waiting for someone to come along and just kind of give you something to work with, right?
Yeah, because you would have gotten more interest.
Your leverage is gone.
You would have gotten more demand, and like you said, your leverage is gone at
Yeah.
that point for sure.
So anyway, fast forward, he's had some time to digest what we've presented to him. He decides that he is going to work with us on it. It's great.
It's amazing.
Get to work right away. The tenants are super lovely family. It doesn't not always happen this way. I promise you that. It's very, very fortunate that we get to work with them on this. We've actually been helping them try to find another rental as well, because the reality of it is they would love to stay, but that person purchasing this may not want tenants. They may want to move it and do it for themselves, and in the best interest of our seller client, their house will inevitably sell for more money if it is vacant.
Yep.
It's just that's hard data that shows that too. So we do a walk through the property. And it's not bad. It's Christmas time. There's still, like, the Christmas trees are up. That's all got to come down. We're talking about photos today. Actually, we're taking photos today. We had to coach them last week on getting all the decorations down. You can't take photos of Christmas trees in January, guys. Believe it or not, your house will not show well.
Tony is against the fact that we keep keeping Christmas holiday decorations all year.
It's over.
In time.
It's over. Christmas is over. But they were cool about it. I said, listen, because they want to work with the landlord too. They have a really good relationship. There's no animosity or friction or tension at all. So we're going to go back today. Probably going to touch on a few more little things, like, stuff like, no one lives like we're in a magazine.
Yeah.
And when you're working with a tenant versus working with an end user, like, an end user is generally pretty excited to get the photos done. They want to make sure their house looks good. They look forward to getting them and flipping through them and saying, oh, wow, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a sense
I
of
couldn't
pride
envision
there.
my house looking like this sometimes,
100%, right? But on the tenant on the other side, they don't have that same enthusiasm, because for them, it's a totally different set of emotions.
Of
They're
course.
moving out. They have to find a new place. There's stress. There's uncertainty.
Yeah.
And none of us live like we're in a magazine, but there's a lot less willingness to try to, like, spruce it up, let's say. So we're going to go back a little bit earlier than the photos today and just kind of tidy up a few things, like stuff like, they got a lot of kids, so putting all the shoes away for the photos, just trying to make the space feel big, as big as possible. But at the end of the day, we'll get the photos done. They can put everything back the way it is. You can't have them live like they're not paying to be there, right? But
they can't, like, be living in walking in eggshells type of thing.
Yeah,
Just, like,
exactly.
They move something. Okay, we have to move it back, and like
It's
Yeah.
one of those things, I think, and I think we're going to see it a lot in 2025 and 2026 when maybe some of these interest rates are renewed and the numbers maybe don't make a lot of sense for investors anymore. Like perhaps they just say, you know what, maybe it is time just to sell off. And I think if anyone's listening and thinking about it, like let us know if you have any questions, because every set of tenants, every house, every sale is different, and there's like again a lot of moving parts, but you know, we are good at bridging that gap, I think, between landlord and tenant, and we just want to make it as smooth as possible. So like I'm pretty optimistic for what the photos will bring and the action that we'll get afterwards. We are like, you know, it's not a fire sale. We're going to go a little bit higher than my recommended price.
And hope for the best.
Not hope for the best. I think there's a little bit of strategy in there in that if someone, because I think we are in that market where buyers are very picky and no one wants to pay full price for anything. So I think it's inevitable that someone's going to come in and say, yeah, we're going to give you 10K under asking or 15K under asking,
So
whatever
then
that
you kind
is.
of get like they got a deal out of it.
Yeah, we're insulating ourselves a little bit.
That's
I
good.
do think we're going to align. And that's like, it sounds like such a basic like concept, but I really believe that. Like, I think out of all the buyers I helped in 2024, I don't know if any of them paid asking or above. I know, and I worked with a lot of buyers.
Yeah. Well, you always want to have the sensation of a deal, right? It's like the Black Friday discounts or Boxing Day discounts where like it's the same price as before.
It's that's stupid. It's one of those things, man. I think a lot of people are like they had to have their expectations checked as we get further into 2025. Like I don't know if I think if more people are getting mortgages and getting pre-approved, then we're going to run into an inventory problem pretty quickly. So, I mean, back to the tenant thing. Very fortunate on that. But like I said, there's a lot of complications with listing with tenants, timelines and stuff. Like I think the team has like 9 multi-unit homes coming up.
Wow.
Something crazy that Leo's got in the pipeline. And like coordinating all those types of things is very difficult. Like showings with tenants rights, like, you know, tenants allowed to be there for a showing, right? If you they have no obligation to leave that property if someone's coming in to view it, which I can tell you right now, once or twice, I've been like, holy cow, what the hell is going on here with these tenants? One time I was showing a property. It was a condo in downtown Kitchener-Waterloo. And, oh my God, I knocked on this one bedroom. Because I always knock, guys. I always knock.
Always make sure
knock.
nobody's home.
Doesn't matter. I've been there and I thought the house was vacant and it wasn't bloody vacant. So
I
don't do it.
When I have to do a showing for like a rental, I even go and like I open the door.
I say hello.
Hello.
Me too, man. Every single showing I ever do, I knock and I say hello, and then even my clients be like, "There's no furniture," and I'm like, "Guys, it's PTSD, man. Let me do my thing." But this downtown Kitchener-Waterloo condo, I knock and I'm like, "Hello," and the guy's like, "Yeah, come on in, come in." And he's like, "Just you can hear him in the bedroom or something." He's like, "Yeah, just like, you know, I'll be in here. Like, don't mind me. Go ahead." And we're like looking around and. My God, we walk into the bedroom that he's in, and dude's just sitting there half naked in bed. He's just like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" And we're like, "Oh, hey, didn't catch you at a bad time." He's like, No, it's all good, man. Just come over." It was weird.
Okay.
It was weird. I'll give you another one too.
Hold on, before you
please.
get to that one, was your clients buyers or tenants?
Buyers.
So, as a buyer, how quickly they leave that room? They didn't even see that room much.
And he was a tenant. See, so it's
so
like,
that's what I'm saying. Like that's what you were just saying right now. Like it's hard, and because then it gets to the point like we didn't really see that room. Like we just awkwardly, okay, we gotta get out of here. So it's like
it was like getting the hell out of here as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and it has that bad conception of it. Like it might be the same as another house that they end up going with, and it could have been better.
Oh yeah.
But because of this, like it's just badly in their brains. They're never gonna forget that guy.
Safe to say we bought something else with
there
them.
We go.
One other one, because I know we're running a bit. We're getting there to that point, but another time. This is actually me trying to purchase something. So Luis and I were touring homes, and it was a tenanted property. And oh my gosh, man! I will say that real estate photographers are really good at their jobs. Like, even they fool me all the time too. I walk in places, I'm like, "What? No, how did you do that?" Because this place was a bit of a hole for sure. But this guy, oh my gosh, man, oh my gosh. He was in his underwear like just in the boxers, and he stood behind me within like 6 inches, like breathing down my neck the entire time we walked through this property, like looking over my shoulder. It was the most, I'll never forget it because I was so uncomfortable. I could not wait to get out, and he smelled like BO. It was a thing, man. Luckily it wasn't Louisa, because I probably would have said something to the guy. Even I was kind of like, man, hey, like,
Give me a personal space.
what are you doing, man? Yeah, absolutely. Like, I know that you live here, but like, I'm not touching anything. I'm just, anyway, it was one of those showings. It was like a 30-second showing.
Yeah, yeah.
Pop your head in each room. Okay, giddy up. We're out of here.
And again, you didn't put
Didn't
an
buy
offer on
it.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah.
no,
But
on to the next one.
That's the thing. As a landlord, that's hard because you're in a position of like, if you remove your tenants and you're swallowing that monthly mortgage costs or
Yeah.
payments
Yeah.
that the tenant's not paying anymore, but then you also have this side of the coin where it might take longer to sell just because of
100%,
what's in
man,
it. So
it's so
it's
crazy.
hard, right?
I'll give you one more, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
Because this is the house we actually bought. It was also tenanted. Duplex. So one in the back was empty. No issues there. Walked through perfectly fine. Some garbage and stuff left behind, which still should have been cleaned up.
Yeah.
The front.
You also bought at the time where the market was high, where it was
No.
quick. No.
No.
Okay.
This
okay.
was like we bought in summer 2023.
Okay.
So
Oh
it
wow.
was very
Then
much like-
definitely should have been cleaned up. Either way,
It should have showed better than it did.
Yeah.
This house had been on market for a long time. I was eyeing it for months, and I'm like, this could be one. And I couldn't figure out why it just kept around. It stuck around. So we inevitably went to see it, and the tenants in the front, which were two very nice girls, and they were our tenants for a couple of months before they moved out. Man, they had like 8 cats in this house. So you walk in, it was just like, whoosh, and it was like, holy smokes, this place reeks. And a lot of people call me crazy. Maybe I am a little bit. I am for sure a little bit. A lot of people probably walked into that place and did a U-turn and got the hell out of there.
Yeah.
But it was a nicely updated property. But like these girls were, again, very nice, but they worked for an animal shelter, and they were housing these cats in here, man. And like one of the bedrooms, which is now Sophie's bedroom, it had like 6 litter boxes in it, man. And I mean, you can imagine. I have one cat, and I can't stand the smell.
Yeah.
Not by choice, by the way. The cat's not by choice. It just came with the deal.
There's 1 cat plus 2 dogs.
Yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, one cat's hard enough. Even if you tried to be on top of those litter boxes every day cleaning them, you can't.
It's hard.
So, again, someone's like absolute no, get me the hell out of here was my opportunity. Because I said, like, oh, this has been sitting around. Like, this is prime for us to come in and just like snatch this up, and that's what we did.
Yeah, because then you get to see past what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit easier for me because I'm doing it every day,
Yeah.
and I'm, again, it's just inherently easier. But I'll never forget. I can still smell it too, man. Like I was just like, it was one room we had to put our shirts over our nose because it was so bad. And
That's good for you though. 'cause
crazy,
you had that
right?
opportunity.
Well, I mean, now that so the day they moved out was we were moving into this unit. We hired a cleaner, and even he was like, "Holy crap, I don't know if I can." He did as good as he could with the tools that he had. Put it that way.
Okay.
But it took some time, man. Took some serious time. We scrubbed that place multiple times, but you never even know now.
Yeah, even taking the smell out of the wall, sometimes you have to paint.
Yeah, there was like a small section of drywall that I ended up like capping, which probably helped. But luckily, like the cats didn't destroy anything. It was just the smell. But there was just so many of them. Like,
Yeah.
it's impossible not to smell, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's it. Like I would say, if you're a landlord thinking about selling, have a chat with us. I've been through some stuff. I've seen some shit.
Even if you're a owner thinking of renewing or for whatever reason, let's have a chat too, because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
important. I feel right now there is solutions, and we can find the perfect solution. It doesn't cost you a thing too. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's probably it. You got plans for the weekend? Catching up, sleeping.
catching up and
Nice.
sleep. I actually have my Christmas party for my office.
Oh yeah, you told me.
It's not even a Christmas party at this point. It's more of a launching the year party because of when it is. So it's casino themed, so it's gonna be interesting.
We're going to Trumbull. You had asked me to go with you.
Yeah,
I would have
yeah,
gone
yeah.
with you, and I hate that type of stuff. it's really interesting.
No, that would have been that. Those nights, that one night is fun.
Yeah,
So
I
we'll see.
believe it. Get everyone out of their kind of comfort zones and
Yeah, a
stuff.
little
But
bit.
yeah, we're gonna go snowboarding instead. Mont Tremblant.
I
Never
kind of want
been.
to come with you now.
It's gonna be good.
You haven't been to Vermont?
Never.
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
Have a fun day.
Hopefully, it's not too busy, but hopefully, it's
I'm
just
sure
fun.
it'll be busy as shit, but it's all right.
You have Sophie with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she can hit the bunny hill. It's
Ah,
gonna be fun, man.
that's good. Are you
Yeah.
taking a backpack to put her on after?
No, I think we're gonna like there's like 4 adults, 5
Okay,
adults
okay,
coming,
okay.
so we're
So you
just
guys
gonna
switch up.
rotate in and out because she's not gonna last more than like 25 minutes. I imagine.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Anyway, guys, thanks for
Yeah.
listening. Like I said, drop us a line, comment, share, like, dislike. We will check them all out and let us know if there's anything you'd like us to touch on in the next episode. I will come back with the long-term versus short-term rental stuff on my
Oh
apartment.
yeah, that would be important.
All right,
Yeah,
man.
let us know if you agree with us, if you disagree with us, if you think we're full of it. So let us know.
Have
Have a
a
good
good
one.
weekend.
Bye.